So my job is Professor of Computing Education here. Tremendously good fun. Most of that work is initial teacher training. I came to here via a relatively unusual route. So I spent, it must have been like 18 years working across 4 different schools, including 3 years as a prep school head teacher. But unlike most of my colleagues in initial teacher training here, all of those were in the independent sector. You've read my CV. I hope that doesn't come as a shock this morning. Anyhow, and it was such good fun. It really was. What did I value about independent education? Particularly the autonomy thing, that we as a school could choose what we thought was the right thing for the pupils in our care, that the teachers that I was working with could make decisions for themselves rather than that being handed down from authority above. I think it has changed a little over the intervening 17 years that I've been here now. So there is a difference between school and university. It's not just sort of the size of the young people. Those of you in schools with sixth form, there's not much difference in the size of the young people. One of the biggest differences when I started at Roehampton was how assessment happens. Because in school, assessment is very much a thing which is done externally for you. So you have the GCSEs, you have common entrance, the increasingly uncommon common entrance, you have GCSEs, you have A-levels, you have international baccalaureate, but those are externally determined assessment. Here at all universities, we set our own rules. We choose where the goalposts are. We choose the rules of the game for ourselves. There is external validation, quality assurance agencies, a whole system of external examiners, but by and large, it is up to the university to decide what assessment looks like. This is relevant to the conversation that we move towards when thinking about academic integrity and academic misconduct. We choose our rules. You have rules set for you by JCQ. Georgia is on my mind because one of the lovely projects I did here was going and supporting Georgian universities with developing academic integrity policies. Academic integrity was a real issue in Georgia, post-Soviet Republic, and there was this tradition of the best quality work just passes on the work of the authorities in the subject. So I'm not going to call that plagiarism, but certainly an homage to the leading authors in the field was very much where Georgian higher education was. I'm not saying I single-handedly turned that round. Group project, EU Comenius funded. I remember the EU. There you go. So, it was a fascinating thing. And one of the key messages we wanted to get across, Georgian universities that I was supporting, was this idea of do it yourself. We wanted to promote publicity campaigns for students there as to why they should do this. And the key message there to them was do it yourself. I am here now a DO. Stands for disciplinary officer. So there are semi-judicial powers to this. If somebody has, we think, cheated in one of their essays, then the program leader says, we are very, very suspicious of this, and we hold a level 2 suspected, keyword, academic misconduct meeting. So I turn up on a team call, their program leader turns up on the team call, the student themselves turn up on a team call, and we have a conversation without offering them a coffee about how they had put their assignment together. And sometimes these days, we're asking specific questions about, why did you choose that word? Why did you choose that author? And on the basis of those meetings, we say, actually, we think there is evidence that you've cheated. Therefore, we're going to make you do the whole thing over again properly, which there are higher sanctions than that, but that's largely where we get to in that. So some of these issues of academic misconduct cross my desk. I'm also a member of the university's AI Development and Innovation Group. This is the third AI group at university level that I've been a participant on, and of course many of our concerns is about rethinking assessment and how we ensure the validity, reliability, robustness of our assessment. So what I want to do over, I've got slightly longer than anticipated. Hey, that's good news, isn't it, folks? Over the next, 50 minutes or so, talk a little about the evidence, the data we've got about what's happening, particularly in school, but also what's happening in higher education. Spoiler alert, I think there is a problem, okay? Is there a problem? Why is there a problem here? And then I'm going to attempt to say what some people are doing by way of solutions. You will, I suspect, all have your own solutions to this. So around the room, turn to the person sat next to you. This is very much Roehampton style. Think, pair, share. And seriously, isn't it? We'll ask the sub to share. What's happening at the moment with your learners? How many of them are using entirely inappropriate? How can you tell? And what are you doing about it? Couple of minutes, all right for this? Okay, right, let me move on. Right, so what is happening in schools? There is data out there. Our friends at Ofqual, when the date matters here. So Ofqual 2024, Ofqual said back then, nah, nothing to worry about. It's fine. It really is fine. So, Ofqual asked the awarding organisations, do you think there was a significant level of malpractice in your qualifications last summer? The awarding organisations asked the heads of centre, was there any malpractice in your centre? And the heads of centre said, no, our school was fine, absolutely fine, move along now, nothing to see here. So, there is a vested interest in saying there is no problem. I think your experience perhaps suggests that this is no longer quite the case. The National Literacy Trust did the survey, how much are kids using these tools. These are 13 to 18-year-olds. I think it's a large sample, 4,000 if memory serves, don't quote me on that. And the frequency of use has increased between the 2024 data and the 2025 data. 11.9% said they were using it daily, which I guess it is likely to mean for homework rather than in school. What is it that they're using it for? To ask questions, to help with homework. I love the word help there, isn't it? Yes, my mother helped me with my homework. It is interesting that almost all of these use cases has dropped. There seems to be amongst the teenagers that some of you are working with we've got over it now, we don't like the AI slop, we're fed up with our social media being full of stuff which is not actually the work of content creators but machine intelligences. The one which has increased is the for homework, although I wouldn't say that's a statistically significant increase. You had a lovely survey out from Oxford University Press. Which, if any of these, do you think is cheating to use an AI tool for your homework? 5%, I don't think it is cheating to use AI in whatever way for my homework. Oh, I wish it wasn't an anonymous survey. Give me the list of these kids, please. I don't think it's okay to use an AI tool at all for my homework. And it's an interesting thing between the 5 and the 9 there, isn't it? The 44%, using an AI tool to complete all of my homework for me would be cheating. It's an oddly phrased question. If they had asked using an AI tool to complete any of my homework for me, that might be a different answer in there. You have people who will be ideal for a career in legal professions. They also ask the question, when would you use this? 34%, very, very good boys and girls, will only use the AI tools if it has been suggested to them by their teacher. It's an interesting one, isn't it? There is this thing about preparing kids for a world which does not yet exist, and my guess is that Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude and DeepSeek and all of the others will be better by the time they leave school, by the time they leave university than it is now. So are you setting homework which is encouraging them to use these tools? I regularly seek out AI tools that are going to help me with my homework. Yeah, this help me with my homework thing. I've told this story to you two years ago, I think, when we were up in North London, about my daughter, good girl. She's dyslexic. She was told by her school, you cannot use ChatGPT for any of your homeworks. And of course, she, being a good girl, says, yeah, but you've not said anything about Gemini, have you? So she set the classics prep of, could you please write an obituary of Hannibal Barker, elephants, Alps, Second Punic War, all of that sort of thing. And she types this into Gemini, and Gemini does a very, very good... It's a nice homework task, by the way. Gemini does a good response to this. My daughter knows that she's not going to get away with this because it's so obviously not her work. And so prompts the machine, rewrite this as if dyslexic. All right? So, truly Nixel, who left us. And then, of course, back then, it pays attention to entirely the wrong thing. So Hannibal's legacy will live on, reminding us that even in life's typos, there's beauty and humour. It thinks she means write it as if Hannibal was dyslexic. Produce the obituary in that sense. And of course, we don't know. It was really hard to get an EP assessment back then, so he may well have been. Right, what's going on in higher education? So HEPI, Higher Education Policy Institute, do a survey of undergrads every year. I think this is an anonymous survey, so I'm more willing to believe they admit to using it for things which we might consider inappropriate. Used an AI assistant to explain concepts to me, used AI to summarize a relevant article, something I very much encourage my students to do. Reading 3,500 words of a journal article, a big ask for some of my trainee teachers. Get Notebook LM to summarize that, produce the incredibly enthusiastic podcast about the academic paper. That doesn't seem inappropriate use of these technology. Use an AI assistant to suggest ideas for research. That's interesting territory for our master students particularly. But what is the one that we would worry about? So used AI to generate text, which I then edited before incorporating into assessed work. Is that cheating? The AI writes it, you rewrite it? What about the other way around? You write it, the AI rewrites it for you. Included AI-generated text directly in a piece of assessed work, 12%. That's a massive increase on what it was 2 years ago. Now, which of these reasons would make you more likely to use AI tools? So again, you have the green bar is what's the current year's figures. So to improve the quality of my work, to save me time to get instant support, none of which is particularly surprising. This is the more interesting one. So what would make you less likely to use these AI tools? So this sense of being accused of cheating was a big deterrent last year. Less of a deterrent this year because the AIs are very, very good at removing evidence, or possibly students are very good at removing evidence of the AI supporting them. They're worried about the hallucination thing. We've told them it just makes stuff up. You can't rely on it. But their experience has been, actually, it is pretty reliable about this, I think. I think they may have become more critical. The one that has increased is the environmental impact of this. And that seems to be, it's going to be their world, folks. A very, very warm summer's day here at Roehampton once again. Their worry about the impact of this on the environment seems to have increased. Are you getting any of that rebelliousness, or we don't want any AI because of the impact, because of the water? That's at least 2, 3, 4. I'm seeing a lot more of this now. I'm quite glad about that even my generation, oh, look at the shiny toys, this is amazing, let's use it for producing like caricatures of ourselves and all of that. They are becoming much more sensitive to the issues of, is this a good use of limited resources? You don't have to pay for your ChatGPT account, at least you have to register, pay in some sense for it, but this sense of there is an environmental cost. If anybody would like to chat to me more about this, come and seek me out in any of the break times, because I'm doing a little bit of research project on exactly this. How do we produce guidance on sustainable AI? Not the talk for today. You're here back at Roehampton. I work in teacher education. You would expect me to make some reference to Bloom et al.'s taxonomy at some point in the talk here. And the thing is, when you look at the sort of, these are the higher order thinking skills, ChatGPT, no, this is Claude here, it's Claude. So Anthropic did the survey, or did the research based on what people with .edu, American university email addresses, were prompting it to do for them. Right, okay, what do we do here? Try that. Okay, right. So what were they prompting it to do? And it wasn't the sorts of things you ask Google search to do, of tell me about this, or how do you spell that? The remembering, the understanding, the applying, very, very low down the use cases. It was actually much higher up that Claude users in US universities were asking it to create something or analyze something. So they're using it for the sort of thing which previously required human input. It's perfectly easy to do this. I set all of my trainee computing teachers the essay for their first assignment, why should all pupils learn to program? It's a more open question now than it was when we started the essay. How should it be taught so that all succeed? And of course, ChatGPT, I think this is a screenshot from, does a very, very good job explaining how it's going to tackle that, producing an essay, which if I just assess the work, I would have to give a very high grade to. The work itself, not the essay. And of course, somebody was saying to me earlier, I think it was Gareth was saying earlier about they've got very, very good at hiding the evidence that this is AI generated. Grammarly, we've promoted, we've said, we have a number of students for whom English is not their first language, and we think, you know, if you'd like to pass this to something which will look over your grammar so you produce something which sounds like academic writing, feel free to do so. And then we see that Grammarly now has, it looks as though what you've written seems to be the work of a generative AI. Would you like some help in hiding that evidence or making it seem more human? And you know, the notion that the student can say, I have used Grammarly to help me with the written presentation of my work. Yes, but exactly what did you do with Grammarly? So please, let's do the show of hands thing now. Could you put a hand in the air if you think we've got a problem? Put your hand up now if you think, no, this is absolutely fine, Mars. This is the way that the world is. Get used to it. Or words to that effect. Okay, good. You're with me on this. All right, so the checking for notifications. Current Prime Minister says that, you know, we have this idea of we learn through language here. Talk is how we, you know, this is mirroring Vygotsky about social constructivism. Again, if anybody's playing teacher training bingo, social constructivism, Vygotsky. Okay. Talk is the currency of learning, how we develop and shape our ideas, deepen our thinking, explore subject matter, share our thoughts and feelings. That's what goes on in your classrooms. Yes? Language is the medium of learning in your schools. And this is awesome because of all of the things that he says it's awesome for. Yeah? Along comes the AI and mirrors our use of language. It's ludicrously well read. It has read all of the books, all of the pages. It's read even more than Ian Yorston has. Okay. In-house. Okay. And it knows stuff and it communicates it very, very clearly and effectively. And so it takes out that sense of it's a person talking to. So is that a hand going up? No. Okay, that's fine. All right, move on. Right, so then I told you, Vygotsky, this notion of you learn from the more knowledgeable other, the person who knows just a little bit more than you do, or knows more than you do, whether it's a teacher or a peer. I thought for a long time this applied to the AIs as well. They are more knowledgeable. They are certainly other. They can help you learn this material. But Vygotsky, he said, what the learner is able to do in collaboration today, they will be able to do independently tomorrow. You are good at that with the kids that you teach. My worry now is that the AIs are not particularly concerned about their being able to do it independently tomorrow. So terms and conditions apply. We're good at teaching them to do this now so they can do it on their own later. My worry is that the AI that comes along says, you don't need to worry about this, it's fine, I've got this for you. They don't actually learn how to do it for themselves, unless we prompt well. And again, my great hero in terms of education theory, Seymour Papert, this idea of you make something in the world to make something in your head. It is by building the publicly shared knowledge artifact that your understanding of the thing itself takes shape and becomes something you can talk about and something you can share. He was talking about computer programs, but it applies to essays and music composition and art and performance. Everything is that I made a thing, so I get to think more about the thing. And the AIs are very, very good at the information thing because of the way the language model works of this, Monte Carlo Markov chain thing underpinning this. It is one word after another. That is how text works. That's how my talk this morning works. It is yet literally just one thing after another, isn't it? What we're really good at, though, is making the connections between things. And at the moment, I don't think the AIs are particularly smart at that unless you say, now throw in something which otherwise would seem irrelevant. You can prompt it to do this sort of thing. But you know your best seminar type lessons have been where they come up with an idea that you'd not thought of, and you start connecting the ideas across the pieces. And of course, you know the Willingham quote, yes? The more you think about something, the more likely it is that you remember it. And so the problem we have with the generative AI in education terms is you don't think about the thing. You just produce the product without going through the process there. That's not working. The other thing that is now working, okay, the other thing that I worry about with this is the values. So there's an educational argument. There's a philosophical argument, there's an educational argument. I think there is also a moral argument that this is a bad thing. Your schools, because of the sorts of schools they are, not just your sorts of schools, I know, put a lot of emphasis on the kids that leave us will be morally upstanding, virtuous people who care more about others than themselves. You do this well, yes? Along comes the AI and says, you get away with it, you get away with it, yes? So what does this do? The character of the young people. If they think, this is so easy, you tell them, don't do the easy thing, yes? Go to PE on whatever activities, take part in the team sport. It's way, way easier to sit in the common room and watching the TV or whatever than to go out there onto the games field or wherever. You want them to put the effort in for that. You want them to put in the effort for their intellectual pursuits as well. The AI comes along and it's so tempting to just sit on the couch and watch the thing. I don't want to play the video. Don't want to play the video. It's very, very good. So what are the values you want? This was again back to the Georgian University work. Honesty at the heart of this. You will all, Gary, because ISI are visiting at the moment, know the list of fundamental British values. Do you want to do them off by heart, Gary?
I'll leave that one with you.
Okay. Look through the list of fundamental British values. You will see that honesty and integrity are not mentioned on our list of fundamental British values. You might pause for a moment and wonder why our politicians didn't include honesty and integrity on a list of fundamental British values. But it matters to us. Those of you in senior leadership positions know that if the kid owns up, if the kid tells the truth, it is way, way easier to move on and to deal with things than the kid who persistently denies this. This seems to be a mechanism for encouraging dishonesty and respect for others, including respect for the IP of those who produce work. Oh yeah, the AIs are really good at respecting other people's intellectual property. Curiosity is two-way, isn't it? You want your kids to be curious characters in at least one sense. You want them to be interested in the subjects that you are teaching and the subjects they are studying. And I think for those curious characters, the AI is amazingly good. You have a thing you want to teach yourself about. It is really good at helping you understand that in a very patient, in a very structured sort of way. But too often, what you will be seeing, judging by the hands up earlier, is people who are not actually curious about the reasons for the Battle of Crécy or what happened at the Battle of Crécy. They just want to get the prep done. And, perseverance, diligence, hard work is important. Your pupils' parents pay for them to do violin lessons, not so they can get first desk in the London Symphony Orchestra. Some will, but because the perseverance and the effort that goes into learning the violin itself is of value. There are issues here. We've done this before. Where do you draw the line here? We will do the show of hands thing. So is it cheating if ChatGPT or any of its brethren, gendered language, feels that way though, doesn't it? If ChatGPT explains something to you, cheating in your school? If ChatGPT gives your pupils ideas for their essay? Okay, thank you. High bound, good, okay. They've written the essay and they ask ChatGPT, how can I make this better? Is that cheating? Okay. In non-exam assessment, it definitely is, but elsewhere, if they've got ChatGPT open whilst they're typing their essay, like they once would have had Google or a textbook open, cheating now? Okay. If they say, could you write my essay for me, have they now crossed a line? I think we're reasonably clear about this. I think there's a good reason for this, and it's sort of the Vygotsky more knowledgeable other thing. If your pupil students come to you and say, Miss Sir, could you explain this to me? It's kind of on the job description, folks. You will generally do that for them, yeah? If they say, could you give me some ideas for how to start this prep? You will generally do that for them. You might start with, have you actually read what the task is? But you will generally help them with this. If one of your pupils says, I've had a go, Miss Sir, could you have a look and tell me how I could make this better? I think most of us would make the time to do this if the kid cares enough. If they come to you and says, I really do not know how to do this, you will, I think, make the exception for kids who are on the list, for kids who have some adaptation required for their learning, who would otherwise struggle to have any chance of this. But most of them, you expect a certain degree of independence. If the kid comes to you, or goes to their friends, or goes to their parents and says, could you do this prep for me? The answer is generally going to be no, and they know they've crossed a line there. So I think there is a clear line before item 5. Whether you draw the line any higher is another thing. JCQ are clear about this, as you know. So JCQ, telephone, they have a thing there about what's the point of GCSEs, what's the point of A-levels. And they see the purpose of these public qualifications as demonstrating knowledge, skills, and understanding. And if that's what you have to do in the big room around this time of year, because conditions like this are ideal for doing exams, aren't they? Then it's not going to be helpful to get the AI to do any of that for you. If it's about demonstrating your knowledge, skills, and understanding, then what is it? Important students develop the knowledge, skills, and understanding of the subject themselves that they're studying and do not rely on AI. We have the quality assurance agencies. This is the external validation of our program. For education studies, we're required to ensure that our degrees promote a range of qualities in students, including intellectual independence and autonomous thinking, critical engagement with evidence, the ability to construct, sustain, articulate a reasoned argument. Our worry here is that overuse of these AI tools removes the ability for our students to do this. Many of you will know Anthony Selden from Wellington days and Brighton days. So he says, the problem here is the things that stick with you over all of the time is the things that you really struggled with at school. You will each be able to remember a thing which didn't come easily to you, that you had to work really hard at, and that has stuck with you. Along comes the AI and says, oh, no, it's fine, don't worry, I've got this for you. Okay, I've shown this quote to some of you before, I'm sure. Does anybody recognize the source of the quote there?
Is it Aristotle or Socrates? I'm not sure.
It's one of the two. This is usually a good answer to a public question.
It's Socrates attributed, but he didn't write it down.
Socrates famously didn't write things down. This is Plato putting words into the mouth of Socrates, bemoaning the invention of writing, because once you, those of you who are taking notes, you're welcome to carry on doing so, really are. But once you start writing things down, you stop listening and remembering and arguing, yes? I'm not saying your schools should abolish all written work, because it's really harmful to them, yeah? But there is this thing there about the new things we see as taking something away. Plato says Socrates was very clear about this idea of writing being a harmful thing. And I think we've come to live with this. This is not an argument that we will come to live with AI. Many of you may see this. So this idea of the potion for remembering takes you down this notion of the pharmacon, from which we get the words like pharmacy and so on. And so people have, Vegariff and Caseborn have taken up this idea and ran with it and saying AI is the modern pharmacon. You know that your sick bays are very, very happy to prescribe or to give, not prescribe strictly, small quantities of medicines to help children who are encountering particular difficulties. My daughter has with her today some paracetamol and some ibuprofen, in case she needs that to get through the day ahead of her. That's okay, but too much of any of these things, really very, very harmful. And so this sense of the AI is the pharmacon. A little bit of this, once in a while, to explain something to you, or teach you a new thing, or suggest things that you might find worth reading, doesn't seem too bad. Too much of the thing, really probably very, very harmful. My doctoral student says the emphasis has to be on the con bit in pharmacon. He would say that, wouldn't he? Okay, so we have here this sense of, yes, it works. It will produce quality written work. The problem is it doesn't help you. It doesn't help your students to learn things because you've got the thing done. Why would you need to revisit any of this? They've put people into experiment and treatment groups. They've tried different approaches. So some people have to do it all paper-based, old school. Some people get access to the AI tools. You put them into the functional magnetic resonance equipment. Special training is required, consent forms and all of that. And you scan their brains afterwards. And nobody in the room will be surprised to hear that those who actually did the pen and paper exercise have better connections between the neurons than those who just handed in the slop generated by the AI. If they are allowed to use the AI, they get better at using the AI. The metacognitive stuff that happens is not so much of how have I learnt this? How will I be able to remember this for the exam? But the metacognitive stuff becomes, how do I prompt the AI better? Or even, possibly, how do I prompt the AI so as to hide evidence of the M dashes and all of the rest? DFE are worried about this. So DFE has people very, very enthusiastic about this, see this as a great way forward. This is going to be amazing. Solve all of the problems we have in education today. Teacher retention, no, use the AI, it will write lesson plans and all that. And other people in the AI are saying, Minister, this seems a very courageous decision. And some sympathy with the latter. So DFE have a long list, maybe to take note please, all of the slides are available later, of product safety requirements for this. These are were meant for those selling products into schools that use generative AI. So if you want a license for schools to use this sort of thing, it has to conform to the DFE's pretty long list, pretty good list really. One of these is that the AI cannot do the thinking for the kids. So if you're wanting to sell an AI tutor bot into schools, as people will be next year, I think, then it shouldn't say, yes, I will now do all of your homework for you, yeah? It should help them. It should say, have a go at this. I'll give you some feedback on this. It's a smart move here. So, and we expect the products to track and report when learners offload thinking to the system. So you will provide an AI tutor bot for all of your kids. They will use the AI tutor bots. Your designated safeguarding lead will get reports of this child outsourced their thinking to. They can't say me because that's another product service requirement. It can't refer to itself in the first person. So it outsources its thinking to the system. And you get a list. It is possible some of your kids may choose not to use the school-provided thing, which will tell the designated safeguarding lead, will choose to use, what do we call it, shadow AI for this sort of thing. Interesting line buried in the education white paper that says we will expect all AI tools used by schools to meet high standards of safety and quality. So we move from this list is for suppliers of AI tools being marketed just to schools to a position which says actually take this list seriously because you as a school will need to make sure that the AI tools you use and promote are using this. Our friends at Ofsted, okay, it's not so much Ofsted, it's ISI here, isn't it? They have rules for this. So if they don't say we expect kids to be using AI. They do say if kids are using AI, it needs to conform to the school's policy. So we come back to the strategy thing and the need for agreement about this. Right, let me move on. What can we do up here in higher education? Let's do a little bit of the story about what we're trying to do around this. Our rules are different, our approach to assessment is different, but I very much take this Papert constructionist view that the point of the assignment is not merely the assessment of learning, it's assessment as learning. Think back to your own degrees, teacher training. The essays and other assignments that you did is where the learning takes place. Rory Sutherland makes the point very, very eloquently, not going to play the tape to you, that you never read your undergraduate essays. You never go back and read this. The audience for this was maybe one, possibly two people if you were in the sample for moderation for this. The point of this was not the answer that you gave, but the process you went through to arrive at that answer. Is the same true of GCSEs? Let's move on. Okay, the challenge we have. Stock photo teacher here. You can tell she's a teacher. She's holding chalk in front of the green board. Wants to tell whether learning has taken place, whether the kid's brain has changed. She is not allowed to use functional magnetic resonance equipment because, as I say, training, consent forms, equipment, all of that. All she can go by is the evidence in the work the kids produce. Answers to questions or projects that they make. Typically, there are other ways. And this now is the challenge for us. You've seen my students can produce perfectly good essays as a response to a question that I set. I can assess that work easily, well, reasonably easily. I can give a grade to that work. But I kind of feel I want to be assessing the student, not the product. Maybe different when it comes to what we do in GCSE and A-level. Our students have the right to submit work anonymously. We don't know who's done what work. So I can't even say, oh, I remember when they were in my lecture, that was a very different argument from what they've just produced in their written work. So this is an issue for us. But the university is very clear that they have argued very forcibly that if we know it is, we will be prejudiced against them, or possibly prejudiced in their favour, and they retain this right to anonymous submission. So we see academic misconduct as essentially fraud. It's gaining a benefit through dishonest means. Why do people commit fraud? Firstly, they're motivated to do so. Secondly, they think there is the opportunity they will get away with it. And thirdly, they manage to rationalise it to themselves, that they manage to put aside the moral objection to this, I guess. Same applies, I think, in lots of academic assessment. There is the motivation. You want to pass the course. You want to get a good grade. The opportunity is a real issue here, that they think they will get away with it. I think that's much, much harder when it comes to public exam, GCSE A-levels. But mainly it's a rationalisation. I'm a very busy person. I paid so much for this. Of course I should get a good grade. What I want to do is get to a position where we remove that rationalisation. For teacher training, we've got this. Teacher is expected to demonstrate consistently high standards of personal and professional conduct. Teachers uphold public trust in the profession and maintain high standards of ethics and behaviour. If you knew that an ECT had cheated on their essays, would you offer them a job at your school? Nobody has put their hand up. It's fine. Okay. So there is a thing there about, is it okay for somebody in whom the public places the trust for the education of their youth to have obtained qualifications dishonestly? I don't think it is. I think there should be a high standard expected here. But you will recall that they must, not undermine fundamental British values, no mention of honesty or integrity on that list. When they join the university, we make them sign this, that they will act with honesty and integrity in their studies, take pride in doing their own work, avoid plagiarism or cheating, use AI tools responsibly, always following the guidance of my tutors. I don't know. It's like terms and conditions apply, isn't it? And then we're very clear about academic misconduct is using the AI. And we've got, powers involved with this and what we consider to be academic misconduct. And a very, very clear policy. And I suggest to you, humbly, that your schools ought to have something reasonably clear about the standards, the values, the character that you expect of your pupils. I have strong suspicions that my colleagues made a machine generate some of this, what AI can and can't do. Notice the capital letters throughout there. Okay. And then stay honest and transparent. A sense if they are using these tools, they need to acknowledge that they have done so. I think that's a minimum for this. You notice the M dash in there. We've got examples of students who've done that and done it in a very positive way. They've asked it to explain things. So where do we get to? So for us, we're thinking a lot about designing, the design of our assessment. So we've got like three possible models. Model one, which is what we do for teaching practice in school, you cannot cheat. It's impossible to get the AI to do the work for you. Our trainees have to stand up and teach a lesson. They can't make the robots do that yet. Model two is general coursework stuff. It's possible to use the AI. We expect you to acknowledge where you've done it. And model three, we're sort of starting to play with. We expect you to use the AI to produce part of the assignment. There are issues with this. Remember the 23% who object to this because of the sustainability. And I think we're quite reluctant to move to model three for much of our assessment because of students not deliberately choosing not to use AI tools. This is UCL. So many of you will have been to the Excel Centre for the BET show. Very, very positive experience. This feels as though it's a somewhat less positive experience of being at the Excel Centre. So UCL will book out those huge exhibition spaces, check student ID as they're coming in, probably look into their ears these days or make them take off their Ray-Ban spectacles and sit at a desk with a computer on, interestingly for this particular paper, and do their exam under proctored conditions. This is very similar to what you have. Very similar to what you have. We move away from the written essays, so I have here, we ask them to do video presentations, and of course they can get the AI to write the script for this, but at least with the video presentation, they have to be able to give the talk themselves on laptop screencast technology. I'm amused by the one on the right there, which is looking at how they adapted their teaching for SEND, who has used Comic Sans. We don't immediately take points off. Okay. And then we get to the position, so we award doctorates to people. To get your doctorate here, and indeed at any UK university, you have to have like a 2-hour meeting about the thing that you did. You have to defend your thesis there. Stock photo of somebody defending a thesis. I think it's actually a job interview. And do we move to that in place of assessment for some, or written assessment for some of our essays? Because we can do that. We set the rules. At least that way, they can use the AI to help them to prepare for the conversation. They've got to come in and do it. So this comes back to the Anthropic results from their Claude investigation. So the top 2 here, probably a bad idea. The bottom 2 seem much, much more appropriate. So moving to a position where those seem to be encouraged is fine. How do we move forward in terms of higher education? Need to keep an eye on the time. I think we remove the rationalization, that you here to learn these big ideas, to engage with this, to think for yourself, the purpose of university. So removing the idea that it's okay to get the AI to do this. I think structuring the offloading, yes, get it to read the papers, get it to summarize the papers, but you have to put your own literature review together. I will talk a little bit more about the Turnitin stuff, about the distinctiveness of this, but the best essays I read are the ones where it really is that student's own unique perspective which comes across. Right, let me move on to what you can do in school. Okay, not allowed enough time for this, so there's a nice little group exercise of how can you tell it's AI generated, what are the characteristics of the slop at the moment. This is the list I came up with, the M- thing. Oh my goodness. I tell Claude, remove all M- from your output, but it's so baked into it. It gives you 2 things. The thing we often get them on here is it makes up references, makes up the citations, and you can tell about that. The nothing surprising thing, yeah? Because of how the thing is put together, it very rarely finds out anything interesting. Give me a 1,000-word reflective account of your practice in school. There was nothing interesting in the 1,000 words because it's just what everybody else would have done. So the perplexity stuff, yeah, so you know how the language models work. So here it's word at a time, allowing students to something, to refine, to reflect, to focus on, to adjust. No, it went with a 6% figure of to track their progress. So it shows an odd word to put next there. The AI detectors look at the chance of each word, some of the AI detectors look at the chance of each word 1 word at a time. If it keeps picking the usual word, likelihood is AI wrote it, yeah? If it picks unusual words, like in this case track, then perhaps that's a human input. Sounds great, doesn't it? We've got a measure here, GPT-0 and its ilk do this. Your problem is that people who are learning English as a foreign, as a second subsequent language, generally don't use odd word choices because they've been taught a restricted vocabulary and standard sentence rules, so you get very low perplexity scores from EAL writers, still their own work. So be very, very wary of Turnitin and its friend ilk coming along to you and say, we have a product which will tell you. Yes, it may tell you that, but it generates loads and loads of false positives. So JISC and the higher education sector here in the UK, based on JISC and others' recommendations, generally not subscribing to the Turnitin plugins. I'd be interested to know how many of you have signed up for their service. Perhaps there's a deterrent thing. I have a special portfolio of skills. I'll be able to tell if you've cheated on this. But it will not stand up if somebody says, no, this is my own work. We can't use it for evidence there. So I wanted to talk a little about what you can do about homework. Do you remember the ideas of flipped learning? You say this was invented in the independent sector. We had prep before they had flipped learning. It's prepare for the next lesson, not refine your work or review your work or revise your work from the current lesson. And I think this gives you some area to go to for how to make homework effective. Get the AI to explain next lesson's topic to you, by all means. Watch the videos if you must. Look at the hero teachers on the tickety-tock or whatever it is, and then bring them in, and in the next lesson, you start from what did you learn from your homework? What did you learn from your prep? Rather than write me an essay based on what we've done in the lesson, let's learn the content, and then in class, you might want to make them write the essay whilst you watch them, or you might want to use the lesson time for them to talk to one another. Kids who've been equally fortunate to get to your school. So that's all right, thank you. So flipped learning, I think, has a future. So, of course, now, this is not advice to schools, this is advice to the awarding organisations. You've got to watch out for this. Despite Ofqual having said 2 years previously, it's fine, really, nothing to worry about. Now they're saying to the awarding organisation, you've got to be really, really careful about this. So preventing this from happening. And where there is no effective mitigation, start rethinking your approach to assessment. So there is a thing there about how are you going to guarantee the integrity of your non-exam assessments. Making them do all of the NEA work whilst you watch may be where we get to here, practical exams. DfE are very clear that exams are here to stay. The Curriculum and Assessment Review says partly because of the AI, we're going to carry on, for those hot days during May and early June, bringing them into sports halls and watching them as they do exams, because it's the only way we can assure that knowledge, understanding, and skills and understanding. And JCQ have good advice. You've got posters there for students. This is cheating. Misusing AI is cheating. Know the rules. Talk to your teachers. Reference clearly. And then equally funky posters for teachers to use. So print them off. Stick them in the staff room. UCAS. I need to say this here. Undergraduate admissions. Do not let any of your sixth formers write their personal statements using AI-generated text. Admission tutors are pretty good at spotting this. UCAS say, we have a special portfolio of skills we'll be able to tell, and you won't be allowed to go to university anyhow. I think this is probably where we're going to have to stop. Come back to the thing about character education. If you've got GCSE students, sixth formers, who have that sense of honesty and integrity and pride in their ability to teach themselves these things, to be able to demonstrate their performance, the chance of them saying, yeah, but it's only an essay, I think is diminished, because there should be this sense of, I should do this myself because this is the sort of person I am. And I think that's something which each of your schools will be very, very good. I only missed two. Oh, okay, sorry. You know what it's like? This one. So Turing's test, yes? So can you tell whether the conversation you're having is with a machine or is with another human being? And of course, we've now got to the point where the only way to tell that it's AI-generated work is it's way better than what human beings generate. That's not what he had in mind for this. When these machine intelligences figure out how to put a tick into the box, we need to be very, very concerned, I tell you. But think about the other things that your pupils do that are uniquely human. Some of that is about character. Some of that is about the connections between things. Some of that is probably about creativity. Some of that is about courage. Some of that is about caring for the other kids in the room with you. Some of that is about caring for you and your colleagues and caring for themselves. So what are the uniquely human qualities? And an education system, school policies, school values, which promote that uniquely human aspect of education, to my mind, is way, way better than paying your subscription to Turnitin so it can tell you whether the kid has cheated or not. It's been